Average is the most dangerous place to be. I want to talk to you about a trap. Not the obvious kind, not poverty, not failure, not rock bottom. Those traps are visible. You can see them. You know when you're in them. The trap I want to warn you about today is invisible. It is comfortable. It is socially acceptable. It is in fact celebrated by most of the people around you. The trap is average. Average is the most dangerous place a human being can occupy. And I mean that with everything in me, because average doesn't feel like a trap. That's what makes it so deadly. It feels like stability. It feels like safety. It feels like you've found a reasonable level where the pressure lets up and you can breathe. But what you're actually breathing is stagnation. What you're calling stability is a slow, quiet decline dressed in comfortable clothes. The middle of the road. That's where average lives. And let me tell you what else lives in the middle of the road. Yellow lines and dead animals. The middle of the road is where you get run over. Now, here's what I want you to understand about how average works. It doesn't happen all at once. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to become ordinary. It happens by 1,000 small surrenders. You stop pushing a little. You stop reading because you're tired. You skip the early morning because you deserve to sleep in. You let one standard slip because life is hard right now. And each of those surrenders is so small, so entirely reasonable in the moment, that you barely notice them. But they compound. They compound just like interest. Quietly, invisibly, until one day you look at your life and you don't recognize how far the current has carried you from where you intended to be. Average is not where you end up. Average is where you drift when you stop rowing. Let me describe the average person's day. They wake up to an alarm they've hit snooze on 3 times. They reach for their phone before their feet hit the floor. They scroll through other people's lives for 20 minutes before they've invested 1 minute in their own. They eat whatever is convenient. They go to a job they feel neutral about, do enough to keep it, and come home drained. They spend the evening consuming entertainment that adds nothing to their life. They go to bed slightly later than they intended, slightly more restless than they'd like, and they do it all again tomorrow. And here is the terrifying part. They are not suffering. Not really. They are comfortable enough that they don't feel urgency. They're paying their bills, mostly. They have a social life, mostly. They're getting by. And getting by feels okay, because everyone around them is getting by too. The average person surrounds themselves with average people, and average people validate average behavior. Nobody challenges anybody. Nobody asks hard questions. Nobody holds anybody accountable. The unspoken agreement in that circle is, don't make me feel bad about my choices, and I won't make you feel bad about yours. And so everyone stays exactly where they are, collectively reinforcing a ceiling that none of them are willing to name. That is the culture of average. And if you are living inside it, you are being slowly shaped by it, whether you are aware of it or not. Your standards are being set by the people around you. Your expectations for your own life are being calibrated to match what seems normal in your environment. And normal, in most environments, is average. Here's what I need you to sit with. You were not designed for average. That is not an inspirational statement. It is a biological and philosophical fact. The human being is the only creature on Earth capable of deliberate, intentional self-improvement. The only creature that can look at itself honestly and decide to become something different. That capacity is not given to you so you can watch television and pay minimum payments on your credit card. That capacity is the most extraordinary gift in the universe, and average is what happens when you waste it. I want to address the argument that average people make, because they do make it, and they make it convincingly. They say, "Jim, not everyone can be exceptional. Someone has to be in the middle. You can't have a top without a middle." And they're right that statistically, most people will be average. But that is a description of what is, not a prescription for what should be. The fact that most people choose average does not mean you are required to. The crowd has never been a reliable guide to the good life. The crowd is average by definition. Do not follow the crowd. Study it, understand it, and then go in the opposite direction. Let me get specific about what average costs you, because people think of average as neutral, as zero. It is not zero. Average is negative. Every year you spend at average is a year of compound interest you didn't earn on your potential. It is a skill you didn't develop, a relationship you didn't build, a habit you didn't install. Time spent at average is not time standing still. It is time moving backward because the world is moving forward and you are not. By the time the average person realizes they've been average too long, they feel overwhelmed by the gap between where they are and where they wanted to be. And that gap becomes its own trap, because now it feels too large to close, too late to matter, too discouraging to begin. And so, they make peace with average. They call it contentment. They dress it up in philosophy about not being materialistic, about not caring what others think. And sometimes that is genuine. But often, it is the most sophisticated excuse a person can construct, making peace with mediocrity and calling it wisdom. Don't make peace with it. Make war with it. Every single day. What does that look like practically? It looks like having standards for yourself that are not negotiated by your feelings or your circumstances. It looks like reading when you don't feel like reading, working when you don't feel like working, pushing when everything in you says this is enough. It looks like asking yourself every single evening, did I bring my full effort today? Not someone else's full effort. Yours. Did I leave something on the table that I could have given? Average people always leave something on the table. Not because they can't give more, because they don't demand it of themselves. They stop at the level where it stops being comfortable. And the edge of comfortable is precisely where growth lives. Precisely. Not past it, right at it. That constant daily decision to push one step past comfortable is the difference between a life that compounds upward and a life that drifts. Here is one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. What is my standard? Not what is a reasonable standard. Not what standard do my friends hold me to, or my employer, or your family. What standard do you hold yourself to when no one else is watching? Because that standard is your actual character. Everything else is performance. Most people's private standard is lower than their public one. They work harder when the boss is watching. They're more disciplined when someone might be judging. But in private, in the quiet, unwatched hours, they drift. They settle. They give themselves permission to be less. And those private hours are the ones that build your life. Nobody succeeds in public who hasn't done the work in private. Raise your private standard. Make it non-negotiable. Make it the foundation. Because when the private standard rises, the public results follow. Not immediately. There is always a lag between the work and the reward, but they follow. They always follow. I want to close with this. Average is a choice. I know that might sting. I know it's easier to believe that average is where the current dropped you, that circumstances kept you there, that if things had been different, you would have risen. Maybe, but the circumstances don't choose for you. Every day, including today, you are choosing your standard. You are choosing how much to demand of yourself. You are choosing whether to push or to coast, to grow or to drift, to build or to let things deteriorate slowly. The people who escape average do not do it with one heroic leap. They do it with daily decisions that most people are unwilling to make. They do it by holding a standard when no one is watching, by reading one more chapter, by making one more call, by getting up when everything says, stay down. One decision, made daily, without exception. That is all that separates the extraordinary from the average. The question is not whether you are capable of that decision. You are. The question is whether you will make it. Today. Tomorrow. Every day after. Stop drifting. Start demanding. Your life is waiting.